Just arrived at these mounds at Hanging Rock. Looks like 3, and then 4. Looks like they're right along the rim of the cliff. Let's get up to the top and see. There's another one, and maybe another further down. We'll keep walking to Hanging Rock. One to the left in the trees we saw. But here's 1, 2, and maybe a third little baby one. And from this vantage point, it looks like they're built pretty much right along the cliffside, which would give spectacular views were you alive to appreciate them. That makes almost obvious intuitive sense. Here I am at Hanging Rock, and presumably Hanging Rock is what I'm standing on. I've been welcomed by a quartet of turkey vultures. Hope they aren't anticipating lunch at my expense. I guess this is what's meant by Hanging Rock. But of course, spectacular views down the Mississippi. Looks like a community over there. Great place to kayak. Wow. This mound, almost literally on the edge of the cliff. And not exactly on the edge. The edge is right about where that tree is, but close enough. These are lovely woods to walk through. And no mosquitoes, which is very curious. Looking at this great bear effigy mound and this almost square area and almost flat underneath the belly between the legs, front and back. You wonder if this wasn't a ceremonial place where the leaders would go through various ceremonies, maybe even involving fires and mementos placed in or on the mound itself. And the rest of the people down below here where I am witnessing this, pretty much like a church in its altar. Shagbark hickory. They ate the nuts. I don't know if they had to treat them or not, but used the strong elastic wood in the making of bows. You wonder if they used limbs or whether they could use the entire tree as the source of their wood. That was an entire skill developed over eons. First, notice how shaggy the bark looks. Bear Mound seen from below the bear. So presumably its rear is to the right. Its front legs and head here. A hornbeam tree. One of the hardest native woods, also called ironwood. The leaves were used for cramps and fever medicine, but because of its relative small size, it was limited in its actual use. Here's a very long mound, very long, longest I've seen so far, and then at an angle, but on a little bit of a ridge, is still one or more rectangular or linear mounds. This interpretive site doesn't seem to called compound mounds. I'm not quite sure why, but they may be a transition between earlier and simpler conical forms and later linear-shaped burial mounds. I don't know why they're called compound unless archaeologists can perceive that they're a combination of individual mounds, like maybe that part down at the end there, and then maybe this part right here in the middle of this one in a linear configuration. Waking aspen, but I'm not quite sure which is which. This may be it. Doesn't look familiar to me, but then I'm not that knowledgeable. But the leaves or barks were used for salve. Cherry was used by the forest Potawatomi. The inner bark furnished a flavor for medicines. Ironically, I wonder if the Smith brothers used this black cherry tree for that flavoring, or whether they used black cherries. As we look down this mound, you can see that there is more of a pronounced conical mound at this end, perhaps being the source for the compound terminology. This is the black walnut tree that was prized by the Indians for the making of a black dye. For us, it's a superb and expensive quality wood. This is the hackberry tree. I think that's the one at the back, although the one up front just may be a young version. But it has a cork-like bark, and its sweet flavor fruit, sugar berries, which ripen in September, were used by the Sauk Fox Indians. This is a map of mound explorations as of 1890-91. I never even imagined until a month and a half ago that there were more than just a handful of discrete places.